The Stanley Cup paid a visit to West Point. Comeback Cats came through on Long Island. Mackie Samoskevich gets his first NHL goal, and a young Panthers prospect signed his entry-level contract.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Monday, October 28th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONHL for $20 off your first purchase. You could do that all on Game Time. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here on the show to discuss more of everything that went on with the Florida Panthers over the weekend. A lot can happen with 2 days of not podcasting from Saturday and Sunday, and in between the win between the Panthers and the Rangers, and then everything that happened. And now the Florida Panthers have to turn around and play a game tonight against the Buffalo Sabres right before going to Tampere, Finland for the Global Series. But here to break down everything that happened throughout the weekend for the Cats and preparing for tonight's game against the Buffalo Sabres right before everything is my friend and my colleague here. First time on the show. He is from Lemon City Live, Alex Krutchik. And Alex, we've spoken a few times in person in the press box prior to games, but first time that we are chatting in a podcast setting publicly. So welcome to your debut episode here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, my friend.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Armando. It's an exciting time to be on. The Panthers have given us some good storylines, some good games lately, so I'm really excited to get into all of it.
Absolutely, man. And let's start off with the Panthers and paying their visit to West Point. Obviously, something that means a lot to the organization, the ownership group for the Panthers. I mean, when the first thing you see whenever you drive into their new practice facility out in Fort Lauderdale, right on Federal Highway, you see the dedication to the military with War Memorial and everything with many people in the organization like Vinnie Viola, Matthew Caldwell, Bryce Holwig, and for the Panthers, and both being grads of West Point. And Vinnie Viola saying that the place that he wants the promise of taking the cup to West Point, and now getting that, and saying hi to the cadets there, having lunch with them, lifting them up, and then Barkov saying "Go Navy" when he beat Navy when lifting the Stanley Cup. And crazy to think that Navy also had a football game that weekend at MetLife Stadium against Notre Dame, and they lost. So hey, I'm sure Army was very happy to hear Barkov say "beat Navy," even though it wasn't Army necessarily going against them. We won't see that until December. So what'd you think of when the Panthers made that visit to West Point?
No, I thought it was super cool. First things first, I love how much pride they have in taking that wherever they take it to. You know, this time it was West Point. Matthew Tkachuk took it to the Children's Hospital in St. Louis over the summer. Wherever they take it, they just have so much pride in the cup, and they have so much pride in wherever it is that they're visiting. It was the content that we got out of West Point was so beautiful. And I do think a large part of that has to do with the ties that they have. And I'm not going to lie, I knew that there were ties within the front office with West Point. I didn't realize how many there were. Matthew Caldwell, Vinnie Viola, a few other people that are in the front office there. So it was great that they were able to get a chance to get up there during the off day and see how important it was to everyone. And like you said, Barkov, who's not even from here, I don't know how much college football he watches. But the fact that he had the wherewithal to say beat Navy, I thought that was a cool touch. And it's just one of those things where they take pride in wherever they go.
No doubt. And then the Panthers the very next day going into playing on Long Island against the New York Islanders, Spencer Knight between the pipes, and a little bit of some line shuffles between the Panthers there on the forward lines, with AJ Greer going up on the third, Mackie to the fourth line, Spencer Knight in net. And this wasn't your typical win for the Panthers. We don't for ever since Paul Maurice came to the Panthers, usually if the Panthers are down multiple scores, most times that means the game is over. But 3 goals down, and after allowing the first 3 in the first 12 minutes, which defensive coverage wasn't the best. I mean, Gustav Forsling giving up the on the ice for 2 of those goals against, allowing the defense to get past them. It was mostly on Spencer's left side that they had the second chances. Spencer also having a hard time getting the whistles for him and not securing the puck, and also the first goal being through multiple screens. But how Spencer recovered in that one, and also how the Panthers were able to get the puck into the Islander zone after the first period, especially. But things also seemed to calm down when Buffalo was getting the change, and then Lundell hits Sam Reinhart on that stretch, and then the Panthers go down by 2 at the end of the first period. So things very calmed down a lot once that first goal happened for the Panthers.
Yeah, at first it was more of the same. We've seen it this season where the Panthers just haven't seemed to get up for teams that aren't their playoff rivals. They go in and they beat Boston twice. They beat Vegas. They go in to Madison Square Garden. It just looks like an extension of the Eastern Conference Finals, where the top guys on the Rangers just aren't scoring and aren't getting near the net. And then they go into Long Island and they just look lost out there. Like, they look sloppy. They look like they're not playing with a whole lot of energy. And then somehow they woke up. I don't know if Paul Maurice or one of the captains, dug into them in the locker room. I don't know exactly what happened, but they come out in the last 40 minutes and they played their asses off. And it was like night and day between the second and third period versus the first period. Because, like you said, the first period, there was that one goal that went off of a stick there in the front of the net. I don't think it was anyone's fault. But then, like you said, Forsling was drawn to the front of the net along with someone else there in the front for a really bad screen. Knight had no chance on that one. And then the one that ricocheted off the end boards and Forsling just left Nelson just wide open in front of the net. Defensive breakdowns, but then they look so much better in the second and third, including the neutral zone play. And like you said, one of the neutral zone plays was Lundell stealing a puck and passing it down to Reinhart, who just walked it in on his own. So night and day between the first period and the last 2 periods.
And then Spencer Knight having an incredible save on Anders Lee to preserve the lead at 4-3 at the time. And then also Matthew Tkachuk getting his first 2 goals of the season. It's funny because his very first goal as a Florida Panther came against the New York Islanders in game 1 of the 2022-23 season on the empty netter there for the Panthers, getting his first 2 on and then one of them on the power play, allowing a screen to develop, an assist that was off the leg of Sam Bennett after it went off the left pad of Semyon Varlamov, but also Matthew Tkachuk, being the pest that he is, knocking the stick out of Semyon Varlamov and then getting a second chance opportunity. But also Dmitry Kulikov was great as well, winning a board battle right before that goal by Matthew Tkachuk, but also Dmitry Kulikov getting that stretch out to Mackie Samoskevich in stride and then driving to the net right before he scored on that wraparound attempt for him. So it's another one of those individual performances. Eetu Luostarinen and Jesper Bokus were incredible once again on the PK. It's funny because the Panthers, even being down 6-4, they were able to score and not allow the Islanders to get the high danger around. And it's funny, that empty net shorthanded goal by Gus Forsling, the Panthers have as many shorthanded goals as they do power play goals against. Crazy to think that is not going to last based on how the season goes. It will go, and power play chances to shorthanded chances, but still incredible stats to see there early on in the season. So it's also for the Panthers, like you said, getting up for games against Boston, Vegas, and New York, but it was once again the Panthers maybe a little bit slow to get out of the game. And it's really the Panthers. They even discuss this in their media availabilities, not having their legs going.
Yeah. Was it, sorry, was it Sam Bennett who said after the Minnesota game that we were soft? Like he used the word soft.
Yeah.
So they're aware. They're aware. And Paul Maurice always says, the type of game that we play is the kind of game where you have to have a certain energy level. If you don't have that energy level, then you don't win the games based on the strategy that we play. That's what he says. And you kind of saw it there. The Islanders were able to just get in front of the net. The fact that they let Brock Nelson just kind of camp out in front of the net on that second goal was something that you don't often see from that defensive unit, especially from Gustav Forsling. So it's just a little weird to see against these non-playoff teams. Well,
Yeah.
the Islanders were a playoff team last year, but not the perennial playoff rivals.
Yeah, that Metropolitan Division was like, oh, does anybody not want it? It's like, okay, I guess you'll have it. but yeah, Paul Maurice gets his 100th win as the head coach of the Florida Panthers. Needs 3 more to tie for second. If the Panthers win the next 3, he'll tie Pete DeBoer, with Pete DeBoer being on the opposite bench in the Global Series. But still, you one game at a time. But Paul Maurice 11 away from having the franchise record, passing he will eventually pass Jacques Martin for number 1 in Panthers history in head coaching wins with the Florida Panthers. But we have so much more to discuss on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. We are going to discuss Barkov's possible return tonight against the Buffalo Sabres, and Mackie Samoskevich getting his first NHL goal with a whole bunch of family in the stands. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. And you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks puts its member first, so with all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. And when your picks hit, you can get your money as quick as 15 minutes. Sign up today. Get $50 instantly when you play for your first $5. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. And PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that could lead up to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. And for in the NFL, if you're thinking that maybe the Amari Cooper gets things going with the Buffalo Bills, maybe he'll get over 100 yards, you could look at that all on PrizePicks. If you think Devontae Adams is going to get the under based on the situation that's going on in New York, you could do that all on PrizePicks as well. So download the app, use code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, you could do that all on PrizePicks. Run your game. And I'd like to thank you guys once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Monday, as the Florida Panthers were coming off a 6-3 win over the New York Islanders, scoring 6 unanswered for them, and now have 4 straight road wins for them, 6-3-1 through 10 games of this young NHL season, with Barkov being out for 8. Matthew Tkachuk, the last 7 right before returning a few games ago. And Alex, I mean, you look at the standings. The other teams in the Atlantic Division have their games in hand, but when you don't have the games in hand and you have the better points percentage with everything that's happened with the Florida Panthers, man, you gotta be quite pleased with how this team is rolling. Especially, I think of maybe an unsung hero for this team. Obviously, the easy ones are Lundell, Sam Bennett, but I also think of guys like Jesper Boquist, who was able to go up and down the lineup, shift from center to wing, be one of the top PK guys, along with him and Eetu Luostarinen. And I just think that who's been able to step up has been just huge for this team.
Yeah, definitely. I think Jesper Boquist has been great. The ability to move up from the 4th line to the 3rd line, change his game based on what line he's on and what is asked of him each night. One guy that I've loved, and I think he's kind of become a cult hero on Twitter at least, is AJ Greer. He's just such a prototypical Panther. He's such a pest. He's so physical. I knew that he was going to be a good Panther when he was getting into fights with the Bruins 5 minutes into the season. But he's such a great player, and he has the goals haven't been there. Not that you expected them to be, but actually, I was looking at a Money Puck this morning, and he's one of the top guys on the Panthers in expected goals per 60 minutes. He's getting chances. He really does remind me a lot of Ryan Lomberg without the speed, where he can play offense, but he's a pest. He's great in the neutral zone, fantastic in the neutral zone. He's not afraid to stand up for his teammates that he's known for 2 months. And he's just great on defense. He's a prototypical Florida Panthers fourth liner. I love everything that I've seen from him. And he's been rewarded. He's not even on the fourth line anymore. He's been playing up on the third line, but he still plays like a fourth liner who's still good on the third line.
Yeah, and eventually make his way back to the fourth line based on what the reinforcements will be coming back for the Panthers, because at this point right now I don't think you could separate the Lundell, Reinhart, Luosterainen line with how Lundell has just been able to drive play, and with Barkov coming back and his ability to make other guys better, and now Mackie Samoskevich getting his first NHL goal. Let's go to Mackie Samoskevich. Had a shot that went off the post to reject them from his first NHL goal. And then after faking it, the cut to Varlamov's left, and then scoring on the wraparound with a whole bunch of family there, the Newtown, Connecticut native. And then Spencer Knight, the Darien, Connecticut native, on the secondary assist with a quick tap to Dmitry Kulikov in the trapezoid. And then him coming up the ice, just a great individual effort for Mackie Samoskevich there. And now there's a possibility that he gets to be on the same line as Alexander Barkov. I'm going to guess that Evan Rodriguez would go on that line as well, and then Greer go down to the fourth. You play one game more before Tomasz Nosek comes back into the mix, and you won't have to be seeing Uvis Balinskis playing forward, at least for the time being, which the Panthers have still been able to get through. Even with all that as well. But Mackie, first NHL goal, and we've seen the chances, but now he finally broke through. What do you think when you first saw the goal from Mackie?
So it's hard to say that it's a stereotypical Mackie Samoskevich goal because it's his first NHL goal, so I can't really say it, but based on his play style, it's exactly the kind of goal that I was expecting from him. He went coast to coast on a nice little breakout pass from Kulikov, goes all the way down, wraps around. He just shows off the speed, shows off the hands. It was beautiful. It was the exact kind of goal that I think we're going to see a lot from him just because of his speed, because of his hands. And it was actually sort of similar to a play that he had against Vancouver a few nights ago, where I don't think it was coast to coast, but he turned the corner in the offensive zone to try another wraparound. And behind the net, he's going one-on-one with Quinn Hughes, and he's jockeying with him. And Quinn Hughes, he's one of the best defensemen in the league. And Mackie beat him one-on-one. Like, Mackie got the shot off. He missed the shot, but he beat Quinn Hughes behind the net. And that's when I knew that, like, this guy is really here. This guy really belongs amongst the men. So I think it's great. And I'll shout out, I think it was Steve Goldstein that said this on the broadcast. All three guys that were involved on that goal were all Panthers first rounders. It went from Spencer Knight to Dmitry Kulikov to Mackie Samoskevich. Also, I thought it was very cool that the primary assist from Kulikov to Mackie, it went from the oldest skater on the team to the youngest skater on the team. So I thought that was a cool passing of the torch.
So interesting with even though the Panthers, at least in recent years, haven't really had the riches of having first round picks, obviously trading them for NHL ready players like Sam Reinhart, Matthew Tkachuk, and obviously at the time in the President's Trophy winning season to beef up with Claude Giroux and Ben Chiarot there for them, but still able to get these guys going. And I mean, when you're thinking about slow development for these guys and for Mackie Samoskevich playing multiple NCAA tournament games at the University of Michigan, coming up with the NTDP program, World Junior. And the thing is, Mackie also scored in the first World Junior game for Team USA right before they postponed the tournament due to the spread of COVID in 2021. So he didn't get a chance to build off that, and also getting that late start in training camp for his injury, but always leaving a spot for him throughout training camp, and knowing that he was going to get his opportunity after you see one season in Charlotte and getting a little bit of seasoning. There's a show in South Florida, so I'm going to put a little bit of South Florida flavor. He was getting some adobo placed on him a little bit during his time in Charlotte, and now he seems to be more of a seasoned type of player now that he's getting this opportunity to get 82 games.
Of course, I love that he got a full professional season last year. He looked real good down there. I even up here, you saw that he was getting his chances. He was getting open looks, and started against Vancouver. It continued against Vegas, and you just knew it was going to come. He didn't forget how to shoot, so you knew that once he got himself open, eventually he was going to find the back of the net, and finally he did. I wouldn't be surprised if he notches another few on this road trip.
Yeah, and interesting to see how the rushes will look later on today. We are recording this at 10:35 a.m., so about an hour before the Panthers take the ice for morning skate at KeyBank Center. So we will actually tweet it out on our Locked On Panthers account, and also we will post it on the YouTube page, on our community page. So another reason to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not on Twitter, because we will also provide some morning skate updates on who's going to be playing with who, as the Panthers are looking to be healthier as the global series is approaching. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where a young Panther has signed their entry-level contract, and after a great start in rookie showcase and the start of training camp this past preseason. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And get ready to tackle the NFL action, with America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get 100 in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page when you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports partner of the NFL. Segment number 3 here on this Monday, October 28th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Here on a Monday, here with Alex Krutchik of Lemon City Live here on the show. But also you could follow his work as he not only covers the Panthers, you could see him on his Marlins coverage when the Marlins take the field once again for not only Lemon City Live, but Fish on First. So make sure to check out his work over there. So Alex, another Panther that caught our attention recently has signed his entry-level deal. After the Panthers made their run to the Stanley Cup final, they drafted Hunter St. Martin, 19-year-old forward at the time, drafted him in the 6th round, an Alberta native, who he admitted that he was rooting for the Edmonton Oilers during the final, but hey, he said, I'm a Panther now at the time. But performing well throughout the rookie showcase with three goals in the 3 games, and then scoring in the doubleheader against the Nashville Predators for him. But also 19 years old. By the time the next season starts, he'll be 20, so he'll at least have a lot of hockey in him, playing 4 years in junior hockey in the WHL for Medicine Hat. Also played with fourth overall pick Caden Lindstrom, who got drafted by the Columbus Blue Jackets. He's averaging Hunter St. Martin's averaging almost a point per game through the young season. 20 goal scorer as well. And then you think about also how much how long he was able to stay with the team in the beginning of training camp versus how the Panthers have usually handled it with sending junior guys after the first game, but also spending a full week with the team. That's powerful on how much you leave with an impression once you do go back to junior hockey, and also how they process information. He spoke a lot about the off the ice stuff of what he's going to learn with the Panthers. So great signing for the Panthers. Obviously, these late round picks, you still need to see games in them to see if they pan out. I mean, you're thinking about him, Grayson Sachin, Sandis Vilmanis, a whole bunch for the Panthers, but good sign so far, as we're hoping that the Bill Zito hits on another late round pick for the Panthers.
Yeah, you said it. He looked really good in training camp. And correct me if I'm wrong, Armando, but he made it past he made it further than people thought that he originally would. He wasn't one of the last guys in camp, but I think he made it past the first cuts, correct?
Wow, that was a while ago, so I'd have to check back on that. But yeah, there was a few guys being sent down to the AHL due to their ELCs and everything. But yeah, he was around that area.
He was around a little bit longer than I thought he would be, and he was going against some NHLers. I remember he was going one-on-one with Nico Mikkola in drills, and that was when we first kind of recognized that this guy can play with the big boys. Kind of similar to what I said about Mackie. Like, obviously he's a lot earlier in his progression and his development, but the fact that he stuck around for so long at training camp with the NHL group and was still, holding his own. Like, he looked like he wasn't one of the best out there, of course, but he looked like he belonged. He looked like he belonged in that group. And the fact that this guy was drafted in the 6th round just months ago, and now he's getting this kind of recognition is incredible. He plays in the Western Hockey League. Now, admittedly, I haven't been paying as much attention to the junior leagues up there as I used to, but is it correct still that the WHL is the more physical of those leagues up there?
Yeah, and they get the most They get mostly the players drafted at least recently, as far as the most prospects. So it's a good sign that a guy 19 years old, an overager, there is impressed so far, and at least gets a contract this quickly.
Of course, and yeah, playing with the kind of physicality that the Panthers love seeing. Like, he's another guy that's a prototypical Panther.
Yeah, and for him, his elite prospects profile spoke about how well he works on give and goes, how he's able to shield the puck and everything for him, and just using his big body. He's 6'2", not necessarily the heaviest of guys, but obviously that comes with the maturing of it for him. So he has a lot of time to get into that. And Jordy Kinnear, who he's going to see a lot of next year, don't expect them to make the roster right away, but you're gonna see a little bit of one-on-one time with him, and also spoke about how well he is composed for him. So he spoke about that mostly after the rookie showcase games for them. But we do have a game tonight to cover for the Florida Panthers against the Buffalo Sabres. The last time these two faced off was the very first game without both Barkov and Tkachuk. It was a game where the Panthers were still trying to figure out how to navigate after 2 games of hockey, and the Sabres at the time were 0-3. They were still trying to find their first win. They had the Global Series in Czechia against the Devils, which they lost both of them. And then, but also the Sabres, they're 4-1, so they've rattled off some wins over the last few weeks. Signature win against the Dallas Stars recently. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen was great. They were up 3-0 before the Dallas Stars scored 2 before it was too little too late in the last 5 minutes. So pretty dominant in that game recently for them. Still trying to break their playoff drought. Tage Thompson is getting on the score sheet, 7 goals, only 1 off the league lead in goals, which Cole Caulfield's leading the NHL in goals. Great to see there as he changed his number to number 13 to honor Johnny Gaudreau. But we know that if you eliminate the top 6 of the Buffalo Sabres, which that is really top heavy for them, that the Panthers will find a way. And really with how big and physical that first line is for Buffalo, one thing I'm going to be looking out for is board battles. That is one key thing, especially if the Panthers get the puck deep in the Sabres zone.
Yeah, like you said, they have some guys, but it's a very top-heavy group. I think that the Panthers' depth will really carry them in this one. I think if Buffalo wins, it'll be 2 reasons. One of them is the reason we brought up at the top of the show, which was just, can they wake up for a game against a team that's, not as good as them, not as good as them on paper. The other thing is Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. He's been pretty good this year. If you take out his 6-goal stinker against Pittsburgh, he's allowing 2.4 goals per game. He's been pretty good. He hasn't allowed more than 3 goals in a game other than that Pittsburgh game. So he's been pretty solid. And he held his own against Dallas in their attack. So I think that would be the only tangible thing that I could see Buffalo maybe making it hard on the Panthers with. But other than that, I am excited to see Barkov come back. If he does in fact come back today, he's slated to. But yeah, I think that this should be a relatively easy game for Florida.
Yeah, and Mike Ogello of the Hockey News tweeted that Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen will be the starter today. He tweeted that as of 20 minutes ago. So the Panthers will be facing Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen after seeing Devin Levi just a few weeks ago for them. So that's who they'll be facing. We still don't know who the Panthers will put in net for them. I think with the 3 days off, and Spencer at least getting 1 game in the Global Series later this week, I think we will see Sergei Bobrovsky in net, and then the Panthers will have quite a few days off in between. So there's going to be a lot of gaps in between tonight, the weekend, and then next Thursday against the Nashville Predators. But when you think of the Panthers and them being away, and then these gaps in between, this could be very beneficial for the team as they are going to prepare for a heavy home month of November. So how are you seeing this?
Yeah, I think this is in terms of rest and recovery. I think this is going to be a fantastic month. Because, like you said, traveling to Finland is a slog, but it's also, you get a few days on each end of that trip for rest and recovery, and then you have a bunch of home games. So not a whole lot of travel once you get into November for the most part. So anyone who is a little bit beat up will get some rest, and you get even more time for Tomas Nosek to come back. If Barkov is still feeling a little bit of soreness, I don't know whether he is or isn't, but if he is, he gets 1 game now and then another few days off before they're in Finland. So I think that the schedule finally will benefit them for at least the next month.
Yeah, and for the Panthers getting this in for their rest early on, and also we spoke about, like we said earlier, the Panthers maybe not getting up for the games against the non-playoff teams, but hey, with Barkov back, we could possibly see the opposite with now a top 9 group for the Panthers, more solidified and more balanced for them. So possibly another game where the Panthers could wake up and having it fresh in their minds that the last time they faced off against Buffalo was not a very pretty one. Even though that game specifically, a few weeks ago, I would blame that more on the goaltending, on a not so great performance by Spencer Knight for them. But hey, he bounced back in the last few games, so it's all about how you bounce back there. So Alex, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, on your debut episode here on the show. Tell everybody where they can follow you and your work online.
Sure. So for my Panthers coverage, it's on lemoncitylive.com. For those that want to follow along with Marlins stuff, it's fishonfirst.com. On Twitter, both of those teams are found at Alex Krutchik, FOF. It's just my first name, last name, and then the letters FOF. And yeah, looking forward to the Marlins offseason, looking forward to the Panthers regular season, a huge dichotomy between the two, builds character. But yeah, excited for it nonetheless.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much and hope to see you back here again soon.
Of course, thank you.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone, and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Alex Krutchik, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.